On a cold morning, the human colony woke up to the sound of strong winds moving through empty streets. People hurried to their work, and nobody noticed the figure. Standing at the main gate, her name was Alira, and her alien skin looked pale and thin. Her clothes were torn. She had walked for many days to reach this place. Her eyes were full of fear, but also hope. She knew this was her last chance. If she did not find help today, everything would end for her. She watched the humans moving about. Laughing and talking, she felt alone in the crowd. She saw the guards at the gate. They did not want to let her inside, but she begged them, her voice shaking with cold and fear. She said, "Please, I need to see the human called." Daniel, the guards looked at each other confused. One of them asked, "Why do you want to see Daniel?" She could not explain her story in front of so many eyes. She only repeated her words again and again, her voice growing weaker every time. Finally, the guards decided to call Daniel. They sent a young boy to find him. Daniel was an ordinary man. He worked with machines and fixed broken things for people. He did not expect anything special that day. When the boy found him, he was busy fixing a water pipe. The boy said, "There is an alien woman at the gate. She keeps asking for you. You must come quickly." Daniel felt surprised, but he followed the boy to the gate. When he reached the gate, he saw Alira standing there, shaking her hands together as if praying. When she saw Daniel, she fell to her knees in front of everyone. Her voice broke as she said, "Please, Daniel, marry me. I have nowhere else to go." Daniel was so shocked he could not speak for a moment. People in the street stopped and stared. Some whispered and laughed. Others looked at Alira with pity. Daniel had never seen her before. He wondered why she was begging him for marriage. He saw her tears, her thin face, her shaking hands. He wanted to help, but he also felt scared. This was not a normal thing. He asked Alira softly, "Why are you asking me to marry you?" Alira looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears. She tried to speak, but her voice was lost in the cold wind. Daniel felt his heart beating fast. He saw something honest in her eyes, something that made him pause before he could ask more questions. A loud noise came from the road. Everyone turned to see soldiers from the alien government. Stepping out of a big black truck, they were searching for someone. Their leader held up a picture of Alira, shouting her name through a speaker. The guards at the gate became afraid. They told Daniel to step back. Alira grabbed Daniel's arm and begged again, "Please do not let them take me. If they catch me, I am finished." Daniel had to make a choice. His mind raced. He remembered how his mother once told him that sometimes a small act of kindness can change everything. He looked at the soldiers, then at Alira. He could see the soldiers were getting closer. They showed the picture to the guards and to everyone passing by. Daniel took a deep breath. He reached out his hand and helped Alira stand up. He said to the guards, "She is with me. We are together." The guards looked nervous, but let them go. Daniel took Alira quickly into a small side street. Trying to stay hidden, Alira walked beside him, holding his arm tightly. Daniel asked her again, "Why are the soldiers looking for you?" Alira whispered, "I cannot tell you. Here it is not safe." Daniel knew they had to hide somewhere safe before the soldiers found them. He led her through a maze of narrow streets, moving fast. They could hear the shouts of soldiers behind them. Daniel felt fear growing inside him, but he did not stop. He wanted to keep Alira safe. He did not know why, but he felt it was the right thing to do. As they reached Daniel's small workshop at the edge of the colony, Alira finally spoke more. She said, "Thank you. Daniel, you saved me." Daniel said, "You are not safe yet. We have to hide. The soldiers will look for you here too." Alira nodded. She sat in the corner of the workshop, her hands shaking. Daniel gave her a blanket and some water. He looked at her and wondered what story was hidden behind those sad eyes outside the workshop. The wind howled, and the sound of soldiers searching grew louder inside. Daniel and Alira waited in silence, both scared, both not sure what would happen next. The only thing clear was that their story had just begun, and nothing would ever be the same. A Gonski ChatGPT Daniel's workshop felt small as Alira sat curled in the corner with the blanket wrapped around her thin body. Her eyes kept moving to the door. Every little sound made her jump. Daniel paced across the room, not knowing what to do next. He looked through the window and saw soldiers passing on the street, their boots loud on the stone ground. Alira pulled her knees close and whispered, "Please, do not let them find me." Daniel nodded, even though he did not understand everything. He knew he could not let the soldiers take her. Fear was written all over her face, and he could not ignore it. He found some bread and water for Alira, and she ate slowly, her hands trembling with every bite. Daniel tried to speak, gently asking, "Why are they chasing you? What happened, Alira?" Looked down at the floor, her voice only a whisper. "I am blamed for a crime I did not do. My people will not listen. They want to punish me. I ran for my life." Daniel felt sorry for her. He saw the truth in her eyes. She was not dangerous, only scared. And alone outside, soldiers put up posters with Alira's face on every corner. One of Daniel's old friends, Tom, stopped by the workshop and spoke in a low voice. "They are searching every house. You should stay away from this alien girl." Daniel shook his head. "I cannot leave her." Tom frowned. "You know this could get you in trouble." Daniel knew Tom was right, but he could not leave Alira. The fear in her eyes reminded him of times when he was alone and scared too. As the night grew darker, Daniel brought a mattress and placed it near the workbench for Alira to rest. He stayed up, watching through the window, listening for the sound of boots. Every few minutes, Alira would wake up, shaking from a nightmare. Daniel would tell her quietly, "You are safe here, do not worry." But inside, he felt the weight of danger pressing down on him. Early next morning, Alira finally shared her real reason for asking Daniel to marry her. She spoke with hope and desperation in her voice. "If I marry a human, I will be protected by the law. Your people's rules will not let the soldiers take me away." Daniel was shocked. He had never heard of this law before. He was not sure if it would work. Alira's eyes pleaded with him. "Please help me. If we marry, they cannot hurt me. I will be safe." Daniel wanted to believe her, but his mind was full of questions. What if the law did not protect her? What if the soldiers did not care? Suddenly, there was a loud knock on the workshop door. Daniel's heart stopped for a second. Alira covered her mouth to keep from crying out. Daniel whispered, "Hide behind the boxes." She crawled quietly to the far side of the room, hiding behind old wooden crates. Daniel took a deep breath and opened the door. To soldiers stood outside there, eyes cold and sharp. "We are looking for an alien woman. Have you seen her?" Daniel shook his head, pretending to be confused. "No one like that here." The soldiers looked around, trying to see past Daniel into the room. One of them stepped forward. Daniel blocked the way with his body. The soldier frowned. "You better not be hiding her. If we find her here, you will be punished." Daniel nodded, pretending to agree. The soldiers left, but not before looking him up and down. Daniel closed the door slowly and let out a shaky breath. Alira came out from her hiding place, her face pale with fear. Daniel sat down on the floor beside her, both of them shaking. That night, Daniel and Alira talked more. She told him stories of her home, a place now destroyed by war. She had nothing left and nowhere to go. Daniel listened and felt his heart ache for her. He thought about her words and wondered if he should take the risk of marrying her. Maybe it was the only way to save her. As they talked, a siren wailed. In the distance, the soldiers were searching another house. Daniel knew their time was running out. If he wanted to help her, he had to act. Soon they made a plan to visit the records office at midnight. Daniel's old friend Tom agreed to help. He would distract the guard while Daniel and Alira went inside and made the marriage official with fake papers. If they succeeded, the soldiers would not be able to touch Alira anymore. The idea brought a little hope to both of them, but it was also dangerous. If caught, they could lose everything. Daniel felt nervous, but also determined. He looked at Alira and saw she was counting on him, maybe for the first time in her life. She had found someone willing to fight for her. As midnight approached, Daniel and Alira moved quietly through the empty streets. Shadows followed. There, every step, the city felt cold and full of danger. Daniel's heart beat fast as they reached the records office. Tom waved from the corner and called out to the guard who walked away for a moment. Daniel and Alira slipped inside and found the old marriage register. Daniel wrote their names with a shaky hand. Alira signed to their hands, touched for a moment in the darkness. Hope and fear mixed together outside the soldiers. Voices grew louder. The plan was almost finished, but would it be enough? Back at the workshop, Daniel and Alira waited for the sun to rise, both scared, but also hoping the new day would bring safety. Neither of them knew what would happen next, but together they felt a little stronger, ready to face whatever was coming. Morning light filtered into Daniel's small workshop as he sat on the floor next to Alira, both tired from the long night outside the soldiers. Voices faded with the rising sun. For a moment, Daniel hoped their troubles were over, but deep inside, he knew the danger was not gone. Alira tried to rest, but nightmares kept her awake. Every sound from the street made her flinch. Daniel made tea for her using the last leaves he had. Alira wrapped her cold hands around the cup and looked at Daniel. With tired eyes, Daniel felt the weight of everything pressing on him. He wanted to help, but the risk was growing. Every hour the colony was now filled with whispers about the strange human and the alien woman. Some people called Daniel a fool. Others called him brave. Daniel ignored them all and focused on Alira. Alira began to speak in a slow and quiet voice. She told Daniel about her life before she came to the colony. Her home was once beautiful, full of singing and green trees. Then the war started, and everything changed. Soldiers marched through her village. People ran and hid, but many were taken away. Alira lost her family and friends. She wandered from place to place, always afraid, always running. Daniel listened to her story, feeling sadness and anger in his heart. He remembered the time when his own father was arrested for helping someone in need. Daniel was only a boy then, but he never forgot that lesson. Sometimes you must help others, even when it is hard. That afternoon, Daniel and Alira checked the marriage papers they had forged the night before. Tom stopped by to deliver bread and news. The soldiers had left the area, but a new group was coming soon. Tom warned Daniel to be careful. The new soldiers were even stricter than the last ones. Daniel thanked Tom and promised to stay alert. Alira asked Daniel if he would stand by her if things got worse. Daniel thought for a moment, then nodded yes. He could not leave her now, not after seeing her pain. Alira smiled for the first time since arriving at the colony. She thanked Daniel for his kindness and trust. Daniel felt his own heart soften. He saw her not just as a stranger or a problem, but as a person who needed help and a friend who trusted him. They made a plan to stay hidden during the day and only move at night until the danger passed. Alira spent her days helping Daniel in the workshop, learning to fix machines and clean tools. Daniel taught her about human ways, and she shared alien stories. In return, they laughed at each other's mistakes, and slowly the fear inside them began to fade. One evening, as they worked together, the workshop door creaked open and a shadow fell across the room. Daniel grabbed a wrench, ready to fight, but it was only Tom returning with more news. He said the soldiers were searching marriage records in the city. If they found any fake papers, both Daniel and Alira could be taken away. Daniel's heart raced with worry. Alira looked at him with wide eyes. What will we do, Daniel? He did not have an answer, but he knew they had to do something soon. Daniel spent the next day repairing the old radio in his workshop, trying to listen to news from other towns. He heard stories about soldiers arresting people for small mistakes, about new laws making life harder for everyone. Alira helped him with the repairs, but her hands shook. Daniel tried to comfort her, telling her they would find a way out together. Alira said she believed him, and that gave Daniel hope. He never thought he would find courage in someone else's belief, but now he did. That night, as the city lights flickered, Daniel and Alira prepared to visit the records office again. They needed to make sure their names were safe. Tom went with Them moving through shadows and dark streets, the city felt more dangerous than ever. Daniel's heart pounded as they reached the office. Alira squeezed his hand and whispered, "We can do this, Daniel." Forced himself to be brave, they slipped inside the building and checked the book with their marriage entry. It was still there, but so were new names and new eyes, watching as they left the office. Daniel saw a figure standing in the alley, a soldier waiting in silence. Daniel held Alira's hand. Titan walked past without stopping. The soldier watched, but said nothing. Maybe he believed their story, or maybe he planned to follow them later. Daniel could not be sure, but he kept walking until they reached the safety of the workshop. That night Daniel lay awake, thinking about what to do next. He knew he could not protect Alira alone forever, but he also knew he could not give up on her. Their friendship had become something more than just survival. It was a promise between two lost souls to never leave each other behind. Outside the workshop, the wind blew cold and the city slept. But inside, it's Daniel and Alira found strength in their hope and in each other, waiting for the next day and whatever new dangers it would bring. The sun had barely risen when heavy boots echoed outside. Daniel's workshop shadows crossed the frosted glass as soldiers gathered at the door. Daniel looked at Alira, who sat on a wooden stool, her hands trembling, her eyes wide with fear. Daniel moved to stand between her and the door. He could hear angry voices and the sharp sound of radios crackling in the cold morning air. The leader of the soldiers shouted, "Daniel, open up! We know you are hiding the alien woman." Daniel's heart raced, his mind spun with all the things that could go wrong, but he kept his face calm. He glanced at Alira and nodded as if to say, "Trust me, Daniel." Open the door slowly. The soldiers pushed their way inside, searching every corner with harsh eyes. They moved tables and boxes. They looked under blankets. They knocked over a pile of tools their leader stood tall and stared at. "Daniel, show us your marriage papers," the leader demanded. Daniel reached for the folder he had hidden behind a crate, his hand steady though his heart was not. He handed the papers to the leader. The man examined them for a long moment, turning each page and frowning. Alira stood behind Daniel, her back straight, her face as calm as she could make it. She held her hands together as if in prayer. Daniel felt her fear, but also her strength. She did not back away when the leader questioned her. He asked, "When did you marry this man? Why did you come to this colony?" Alira spoke softly but clearly, her words careful and respectful. She told the soldiers she married Daniel because she wanted a new life, she said. Daniel was kind and helped her when she was alone. The soldiers listened, but their faces were hard and full of doubt. The leader turned to Daniel, "If you are lying to us, if these papers are false, you will both be punished." Daniel did not look away. He met the leader's gaze and said, "We are telling the truth. The law protects my wife. Now please leave our home and let us live in peace." The leader stared at Daniel for a long, silent moment, then nodded slowly, but his eyes showed he did not believe everything. The soldiers left, but not before warning Daniel that they would be watching him and Alira from now on. Daniel closed the door and leaned against it, letting out a shaky breath. Alira stepped forward, her face pale, but her eyes shining with relief. She thanked Daniel for his courage. She said, "I do not know if I could have stood so strong without you." Daniel smiled and told her, "You are braver than you think." Alira's shoulders relaxed a little as she sat down again outside the workshop. The colony was already talking about the morning raid. Some people looked at Daniel with respect, others with fear. Some kept their distance, now afraid that trouble would follow him. Daniel noticed old friends turning away from him in the street. His work slowed. Fewer people brought machines for repair. Sometimes he heard whispers as he passed by. Daniel knew he had lost something, but he did not regret helping Alira inside the workshop. Daniel and Alira tried to build a normal life. They worked together, fixing small things, sharing stories, and learning about each other in the evenings. They would sit by a little heater, drinking tea and looking out the window at the stars. Alira told Daniel about her home before the war, about the gardens and music, about her dreams of peace. Daniel shared stories of his childhood, of learning to fix things with his father of the old world before the colony. Life made everything. Harder late one night, Alira heard a noise outside the workshop. Daniel woke to find her standing at the window, her face worried. Daniel peered into the darkness and saw a figure moving quickly down the street. He wondered if someone was spying on them, maybe another soldier or a neighbor who wanted to earn a reward. Daniel put a reassuring hand on Alira's shoulder and promised her, "We will be careful. No matter what happens, we will face it together." As days passed, Daniel and Alira became closer. The fear did not go away, but it changed into something stronger. Every challenge made their bond deeper. Daniel found new ways to hide their tracks, new ways to make the workshop safe. Alira helped him with clever ideas and quiet strength. Together they felt a hope that maybe they could find a place in this world, but the colony did not forget their strange marriage. The stories grew more wild every day. Daniel heard rumors that some wanted to send Alira away, others wanted the soldiers to return. Daniel knew the danger had not passed. Every day felt like the calm before another storm, yet every night he and Alira would sit together and talk, dreaming of a future that might be theirs, if only they could survive the next testing. The soft light of evening, Daniel looked at Alira and saw not just an alien woman in need, but a friend, and maybe something more. He understood now that their story was about more than danger. It was about trust and the courage to stand together against a world that wanted them apart. As darkness fell again, Daniel promised himself he would do whatever it took to protect her, no matter what the colony or the soldiers tried next. Their fight was just beginning, and they would face it side by side. Daniel woke up before sunrise with a strange feeling in his chest. The workshop felt colder than usual. A thin fog curled around the windows. Alira was already awake, sitting quietly with her knees hugged to her chest, her eyes fixed on a spot in the corner. Daniel asked if she had slept at all, but she only shook her head. He knew she was afraid. Every morning brought new fear that someone might come to take her away. Daniel tried to distract her by working on a broken generator together. But every time a cart rolled by outside or someone shouted in the street, Alira jumped. Her fear was heavy in the air. Later that day, Daniel found an envelope. Pushed under the door, inside was a single piece of paper with clumsy writing. It said, "I saw the alien in your house. Soldiers will come tonight." Daniel's hands shook as he read the message. He looked at Alira and told her they could not stay here any longer. Alira's eyes widened with panic, but Daniel put a hand on her shoulder and told her they would find a way to escape. For the first time since meeting Daniel, Alira told him her biggest secret. Her words were quiet and full of pain. She said, "I was not always poor and alone once. I was a leader among my people. My family helped rule our city until war came, and everything changed. I was blamed for crimes I never committed. Enemies lied about me to take my place. I lost everything, my home, my family, my safety." Daniel listened in shock. He never imagined that the quiet alien woman in his workshop once had power and respect. Alira continued, "Now I am nothing but a runaway, and everyone wants to use me or destroy me." Daniel felt anger burning inside him. He told Alira she deserved a second chance. Her life was not over just because someone lied about her. He said, "I believe you, and I will help you no matter what happens." Alira's eyes filled with tears. She had not heard such words in a long time. Together, they made a plan to leave the colony before the soldiers could arrive. Daniel started to gather everything they needed: food, water, tools, and old maps. Alira helped him fix a small engine cart. They would travel at night when fewer people could see them. Daniel wrote a note for Tom, thanking him for his help and saying goodbye. He did not want to put his friend in danger. Alira packed her few belongings and the marriage papers, hoping that maybe their story could still protect them. If Kutaz the sun began to set, Daniel and Alira heard shouting from the street. Soldiers were searching the houses near the workshop. They had to move fast. Daniel pulled the cart to the back door. While Alira watched for anyone following, they slipped out into the shadows, staying close to the walls. Every step was risky. Every sound made their hearts pound. Daniel led them down back alleys and across quiet fields. The fog hid them, but also made it hard to see where they were going. Alira kept looking over her shoulder as if she expected someone to appear from the mist. Suddenly, Daniel heard footsteps behind them. He turned and saw a shadow moving quickly in their direction. He grabbed Alira's hand and told her to run. They dashed across a narrow bridge and hid behind a stack of old barrels. The footsteps grew louder. Someone was definitely following them. Daniel picked up a heavy stick, ready to protect Alira, but as the shadow stepped into the light, Daniel saw it was Tom. His friend was out of breath and holding up his hands. Tom whispered, "I came to warn you. Someone told the soldiers where to find you. They will come to the workshop soon. You must hurry." Daniel thanked Tom and promised to send word if they found safety. Tom slipped away into the fog, leaving Daniel and Alira alone again. They continued their escape, moving deeper into the countryside. Alira's fear was mixed with hope. Now she trusted Daniel and wanted to believe they could find a safe place. As they walked, Alira told Daniel more about her life, about the city she once ruled and the family she lost. Daniel listened and promised to help her start again, no matter how hard the road would be. Night fell quickly, and Daniel guided the cart to an old barn where they could rest for a few hours. Alira lay down on the straw and closed her eyes for the first time in days. Daniel watched over her, thinking about the secret she had shared. He wondered if there was a way to clear her name, if there was someone somewhere who still believed the truth. Before dawn, they set out again, heading for a distant human outpost that was rumored to help those who were lost or hunted. Daniel hoped the rumors were true, because it was their only chance. As they walked, Alira squeezed Daniel's hand tightly. She did not speak, but Daniel understood her silence. It was a promise that no matter what happened, they would face it together. Their old life was gone, but maybe a new one was waiting just beyond the fog. The sky was dark as Daniel and Alira left the old barn behind them, moving quickly through the empty fields. The road ahead was long and filled with unknown dangers. Every step they took was a risk, but Daniel never let go of Alira's hand. She trusted him now more than ever, and together they walked into the unknown. Their small engine cart was slow, but it helped them carry food and water. Daniel checked the map again and again, trying to find the safest path to the human outpost. Alira watched the horizon, her eyes searching for any sign of trouble. The cold night air made them shiver, but they could not stop to rest too long. Sometimes they heard the distant howl of animals or the crack of branches under heavy boots. Daniel worried the soldiers might be close, but there was no turning back. Alira's strength was fading. She had not eaten well in days, and her steps grew slower. Daniel tried to keep her spirits high, telling her stories and making jokes about his old life, but Alira only smiled weakly, her thoughts far away. As dawn broke, they found shelter in an old abandoned shed hidden by wild grass. Daniel made a small fire and gave Alira some bread and water. She ate in silence, her eyes full of sadness. Daniel sat beside her, trying to give her comfort. He told her they would reach the outpost soon, and that things would get better. Alira nodded, but did not speak. Daniel knew she was afraid, not just for herself, but for him as well. They waited until the sun began to set. Before moving again, Daniel kept to the shadows, staying off the main road. Every time they heard voices or saw lights in the distance, they hid behind rocks or lay flat in tall grass. The fear of being found grew with every mile. Daniel wondered how long they could keep running, but he did not let Alira see his worry. One night, as they crossed a narrow valley, Alira stumbled and fell to her knees. Daniel rushed to her side, helping her stand. She whispered that she was tired and could not go on. Daniel lifted her gently, placing her on the cart. He pushed the cart himself, determined not to let anything happen to her. Alira closed her eyes, resting at last. Daniel pushed forward step by step through mud and thorns. Suddenly, the sound of engines roared through the valley. Daniel froze as headlights swept across the field. Soldiers were coming, their voices rang out sharp and angry. Daniel pulled the cart into a dry riverbed, hiding beneath an old wooden bridge. He pressed close to Alira, covering her with his jacket above them. Soldiers searched the valley their boots. Thudding on the bridge, Daniel held his breath, praying they would not look below. Alira clung to his arm, her eyes wide with terror. The soldiers passed by without finding them. Daniel waited in silence until the sounds faded into the night. Only then did he dare to move again. He whispered to Alira that they were safe for now. She nodded, trying to be brave as the days passed. Daniel and Alira faced more challenges. They crossed streams, climbed hills, and hid from strangers. Sometimes the weather turned against them. Rain poured from the sky, soaking them to the bone. Daniel worried about Alira's health. She coughed at night and grew weaker, but she never gave up her hope. Daniel promised her every day that they would make it, no matter what. Their journey was almost over when they reached the edge of a dense forest. Daniel hoped the outpost was close, but as they entered the trees, voices called out from behind. A group of soldiers blocked the path. Their leader stepped forward. It was Alira's old rival, the one who wanted her gone forever. His eyes were cold and full of hate. Weapons were drawn as the soldiers surrounded them. Daniel stood in front of Alira, his hands up to show he meant no harm. The rival accused Alira of betraying her people, shouting lies for everyone to hear. Daniel argued back, telling the soldiers that Alira was innocent and only wanted peace. The soldiers did not care. They pushed Daniel and threatened to take Alira away by force. A sudden storm broke overhead. Thunder shaking the ground. Daniel took Alira's hand and made a run for it. The soldiers fired their weapons, missing in the chaos. Daniel dragged Alira through the trees, mud flying with every step. Alira stumbled, but Daniel pulled her up again. Refusing to leave her behind, they found shelter in a cave, hidden by thick roots. Inside, Daniel held Alira close as she cried, her body shaking from fear and exhaustion. He whispered promises that he would protect her no matter what. Outside, the storm raged, but inside the cave, they found a small moment of peace together. As the sun rose again, Daniel looked at Alira and saw hope in her tired eyes. They had escaped once more, but he knew their journey was not finished yet. The outpost was still far and danger still waited, but with every trial they faced, Daniel and Alira became stronger together, and nothing could break the promise they had made to each other to never give up and never leave each other alone, no matter what happened next. After a long night in the cave, Daniel and Alira woke to soft sunlight shining through the tangled roots outside. The rain had stopped, and the air was clean and fresh. Daniel listened carefully for any sound of soldiers, but the forest was quiet. Only birds sang in the tall trees. Alira sat close to Daniel, her head resting on his shoulder, her breathing slow and gentle. For the first time in days, she looked peaceful. Daniel felt hope rise in his heart. He told her the outpost must be close, and that they could reach it before the next sunset. Alira smiled and nodded, her strength slowly returning. They left the safety of the cave and followed a narrow path through the forest. Daniel walked ahead, watching for danger, while Alira followed quietly behind her steps, steadier than before as the trees began to thin out. Daniel saw a small building in the distance, smoke rising from a chimney. He turned to Alira with a smile, saying, "We made it." Alira's eyes filled with tears of joy and relief. Daniel waved a piece of cloth above his head, hoping to show they were not a threat. Soon, a tall human man came out of the building. He watched Daniel and Alira carefully, then motioned for them to come closer. Daniel and Alira explained their story in simple words, telling the man about their journey and their need for safety. The man listened without interrupting, his face serious but not unkind. After a long silence, he agreed to help. He brought them inside, gave them food and water, and told them the outpost was a home for all who needed shelter. Daniel felt the fear in his chest fade away. Alira sat at a wooden table, her eyes wide as she saw other aliens and humans working together in peace. Days passed quickly at the outpost. Daniel found work fixing broken machines for the people who lived there. Alira helped in the gardens growing food and teaching children new songs. Everyone welcomed them with kindness, and soon nobody asked about their past. They were just Daniel and Alira. To new friends in a place where everyone had a story. Daniel liked to watch the sunrise each morning as he shared tea with Alira on the porch. The air filled with hope for the future. Alira wanted to prove she was not a criminal, so she told the leaders of the outpost her true story. She spoke about her old life, her family, and the lies that forced her to run. The leaders believed her and promised to protect. Her news traveled through the colony that Alira was not a traitor and that the real criminals had been caught. Daniel felt proud of her bravery. He told her she was stronger than anyone he knew. Alira thanked Daniel for never giving up on her. One evening, a group of travelers arrived at the outpost, bringing news from the cities. Alira's old rival had been arrested for his crimes. The truth about her innocence was spreading. Daniel and Alira looked at each other in shock. They realized they were finally free. Daniel hugged Alira, and she wept with happiness, no longer afraid of being hunted or alone. The seasons changed, and the outpost grew busier. More people arrived each week, looking for a new beginning. Daniel and Alira became leaders in their small community. They worked together, helping others find hope, just as they once had. Alira taught the children to sing songs of peace. Daniel fixed houses and built tools for his friends. Together they brought laughter and kindness to every corner of the outpost. One clear morning, Daniel found Alira waiting for him by the river, her eyes shining in the sunlight. She said, "Daniel, when I first asked you to marry me, I was lost and afraid. Now I am safe and happy, and I love you with all my heart." Daniel smiled and told her that he loved her too. They promised to stay together, always, not because of danger, but because they wanted to build a life side by side. Their wedding was simple but beautiful. People from every corner of the outpost came to celebrate. They brought gifts and danced under the stars. Daniel and Alira laughed and cried, surrounded by friends who had become family. As the music played, Daniel whispered to Alira that their journey was finally over. Alira smiled and said, "No, Daniel, our story is only beginning." As the days went on, Daniel and Alira created a home filled with warmth and love. They watched the sunrise every morning, holding hands and dreaming about the future. The pain and fear from their old life faded away, replaced by hope and happiness. Together they learned that even the darkest journey could end in light when you have faith and courage and someone to share the path in. The soft glow of sunset, Daniel and Alira stood on the porch of their small house, looking out over the fields of the outpost. The world felt full of promise and adventure. Daniel squeezed Alira's hand, and she smiled back. They knew that whatever happened next, they would face it together, side by side, as partners and as family, forever.